This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Well, good morning. The Council on Aging Board meeting will come to order now on July 15th. I'll run a roll call real quick here. And I call your name, please respond. Tom Brown.
Here.
Patrick Grove will be here in about 15 minutes. Leslie Button.
Online.
Is online. Catherine Carey. Here. Crystal. Here. Marie. Here. Louise. And Kathy Schwartz. Here. All right, our order of next order on the agenda is the minutes. Leslie sent out the minutes from our last meeting. Are there any questions, comments, additions, or deletions to the minutes from our June meeting?
I'd make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, Tom made a motion to approve the minutes, seconded by Marie. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstentions? It's one abstention. Minutes is passed. Before we move on, I'd like to thank everyone for being here today. This is awesome to have this kind of a turnout for a very, very important topic. And also, I'd like to congratulate Tom, Leslie, and Patrick for their appointment on the building committee. The press release came out yesterday from the mayor's office, so we're very excited to be moving forward with this topic. I guess that's all we have. Unless there's anything else from the board? All right, we'll turn it over to Cynthia.
Okay. All right. Like I said, thank you everybody for coming. I just want to introduce, I want to introduce Felicia Jadzak, City Councilor. Are you at large or precinct 2? And Felicia kindly offered pro bono to moderate today's meeting. She has significant experience in this type of work. So it was kismet when we came together, and she's going to guide us through what's going to happen today until our 1:30. There will be a break with cookies. Felicia.
All right, thank you so much, Cynthia, and hi everyone, both online and in person. It's really great to be here with you today. I know there's a lot of moving pieces, and it's a little complicated, but trust me, we will get through it together. So we have about 2 hours together. So first, I'm going to just quickly review what we will be doing during our time together, and then I'm going to get into the details of all that stuff later on. So don't worry about rooms or assignments or anything right now. So first, we're just going to talk a little bit about what a SWAT is. And I think all of you know this, but in case anyone's not sure why we're here today or what we're doing, what we're really focused on and what we want to spend this time doing today is we would like to use all of your ideas, questions, expertise, experiences to help the board understand how to better put together their strategic plan for the new senior center and just strategy going forward. So everything that you all come up with, your questions, things that you come up with, your ideas, your data points, all of that is really valuable. So thank you in advance for everyone who's both joined us online and is here in person, because it's going to go directly into how the board is going to then take the next step and put together their plan. So we're going to start off with just discussing a tool that we'll be using to help us really kind of organize our thoughts, which is a SWOT tool. Now, I know we have a mix of both people in person and online, but for my in-person folks first, can I just get a quick raise of hands? Who here is familiar with what a SWOT already is? Just raise your hand really quickly. Okay, so roughly, and especially for those folks online, I'm going to guess that was maybe about half the room-ish, perhaps. So we have a mix of people who have no idea why we're here and what we're doing. What is SWAT? Is it the name of school? I grew up in Pennsylvania, so we called SWAT Swarthmore, but it's not that. Some of you are like, I already know what we're talking about. And then for those of you online, I'm guessing you're probably a bit in the same mix too. And feel free to use the chat as well for folks online. Happy to keep an eye on that too. So we're going to talk a little bit about what a SWOT is and how we're going to use this tool. possible. Then we are going to break out into groups, and I'll talk more at that point, but really briefly, we have, I believe, 6 groups that we'll be breaking out into, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time together today in these small groups, and we'll be having folks, I'll be checking in with each of you, so we'll be having a lot of support for you. There will be board members in each group as well, and then once we go through all of our group brainstorming, we'll have a break about halfway through, and then once we have finished our break, we'll come back together and each group is going to report out briefly what you've come up with in your small discussions. So that's what we have in plan for today. But some of you are like, okay, but still, who are you again? So just as a really quick re-intro for myself, my name is Felicia Jadzak. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Precinct 2 City Councilor here in Easthampton as of January. So I have taken over Omar Gomez's spot when he got elected to state rep. I'm seeing a lot of nodding heads in person where people are like, it finally makes sense. Who is this weird person? Why is she here? So I've been doing this role for about 6 months now. And I am planning to run again for next year. That's a separate discussion for another time. That's not why I'm here today. In my day job, I am a co-founder and a facilitator. So I started a company called Inclusion Geeks, and we do workplace consulting. So as Cynthia mentioned, I do have a lot of experience with this kind of workshop delivery and talking about SWAT. My background is I went to business school, so I have an MBA and a master's in information systems, and I've been working as a DEI practitioner for over 10 years now. So that's just a little bit about me. I love facilitation. I love talking with people. So I will be trying to get to interact with as many of you as possible today, both in person and online. So all that to be said is I have a couple fun facts online on the screen if you are curious. If any of you like donuts, my husband is a donut maker. So he just bought a food truck at Thick. Again, that's another conversation for another time, but just a couple of fun facts about me. One last thing I want to mention before I move on and start getting into the fun stuff is that I am disabled and I wear hearing aids. Some of you may too as well. And so because we are operating with this hybrid space, it can be echoey in here. It can be hard to hear. I do have closed captions enabled on the Google Meet. So if that's helpful for you, please feel free to stare off into the different screens if you need to. I do it all the time when I'm sitting up here on City Council. If you miss something that I say, don't hesitate to let me know because I understand how it is. And if I have to keep saying what I say, I'm happy to say it as many times as it takes. Okay, so any questions so far, or are we feeling good to get into it? All right, and I know folks are online. So typically for my online folks, I know for a lot of city council meetings, we ask you to keep your video off. You're more than welcome to have your video on for today's meeting. It's going to be a little bit more helpful for us to see you if you have a question. So if you'd like to have your video on, don't hesitate to do that. And as I mentioned before, I'm going to try and do double duty here and keep an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to put something in the chat as well. Okay, awesome. So let us go into the next point. So anytime and every time I do a workshop, a training, a group discussion of some sort, I always like to put in place some guidelines because I think a lot of us know each other. Some of us don't know each other yet. We will get to know each other. But sometimes, especially for topics that we're excited about or passionate about, sometimes, emotions can run high or we get really into something, we get intense into a discussion. And it can be helpful to have some group agreements before we get too far into tense conversations. So I'm going to talk through my proposed guidelines pretty quickly. And what I'd like you all to do, both online and in person, is just think about if you have any questions, make sure you think about that and I'll ask for questions at the end. And I also want you to think about, is there anything missing that you'd like me to add into our group agreements? So first is be present and engage. What that means is whether you're online or in person, I know it's really tempting to be on our phones all the time, but try to put it away because the reason why we're spending this time together is to be here and to really use this time to our best advantage. Second is respect confidentiality. Now, this is an open meeting, so confidentiality is not like, this isn't secret, we're not hiding anything. But what I mean by that is if you are speaking with someone or in a group and you're thinking about what you're sharing, try to keep it to your own stories and your own experiences as opposed to speaking on behalf of a whole group of people or maybe sharing someone else's story who's not here. That's valuable, but what we want to make sure is that we're not misrepresenting anything. And if you're sharing, we want to make sure that we feel comfortable sharing with each other. Honesty and respect, those are key words for us today. So I want you all to be really honest. There are no bad answers. There's no wrong answers. There's no wrong information. But I also want to make sure that as we're being honest with each other, we're also practicing respect for each other. And sometimes that can be a bit of a blurry line. Let's see what we have next. Embrace curiosity. So questions are great. So if your group only comes up with questions, totally fine. I actually think that's great because that's going to help myself and the board understand where do we need to dig in further. So embrace the curiosity. Intent and impact, what I always like to say is I recognize our intent and hopefully we're all here with good intent, but I want to address the impact that we have on each other. So that kind of ties back a little bit to honesty and respect. No negativity. Now, again, some stuff we're coming up with might be negative. It might not be very fun or positive. But what I mean by no negativity is let's not go all the way down the rabbit hole into just doom and gloom. Because what we're doing here is we're trying to bring up information so that we can then use it to put into that strategic plan. We're not here just to vent about all the things that are terrible in the world. And Lord knows there's enough things to vent about. We'll be here all week, not all day. Finally, we don't all know everything because if we did, we wouldn't be here. So it's okay, again, if there are areas that we don't know the answers to. And the final point that I'd like to offer, which is my favorite, is embrace the awkward. We are doing a hybrid meeting. There might be some tech issues. There might be some confusion. We're human beings. We're just going to roll with it. So those are the guidelines I'm proposing. My two questions from earlier are first, is there anything missing? And are there any questions? Okay. And I'm not seeing anything online or in person. So if people feel good with this, what I would love for you to do is give me a sign of affirmation. That can be a thumbs up, a nod of approval, something else, dancing around. And for folks online, if you're on video, feel free to do the same, a thumbs up, or you can put a plus in the chat, or just think to yourself that, yes, I approve of this. All right, perfect. Got some thumbs up. Awesome. All right, so let's see where we are in time. Awesome. So let's get into it. So what's a SWOT? Now, I know there was a couple people in the room who said, yes, I'm already familiar with the SWOT. And if you want to jump in and help me out, please feel free. But I'm going to start us off. So basically, a SWOT is a tool that we can use to help us understand how to analyze a project, a business unit, an organization. And in this case, we're really looking at the Council on Aging and the Senior Center. So that's what we're using this tool to analyze. SWOT stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, what is sometimes a little confusing for people is how we sort of break out those four pieces. So as you may see on the screen here, and I know it's a little bit hard to see, but I'm going to talk through all of it. And I think everyone, at least in person, has a handout in front of you too. So that'll be helpful to follow along with. So strengths are positive internal factors, whereas weaknesses are negative internal factors. So strengths and weaknesses are internal. So what I mean by that is those are going to be factors that are specific to the Council on Aging, specific to us here at Easthampton, specific to the Senior Center that's currently in existence and what we're going to be working on. So everything internal. So what that means is, for example, a weakness is not going to be the economy. It's not going to be political dynamics, right? Those are external forces. So strengths and weaknesses will be things that are specific to us here at the Council on Aging. On the other hand, opportunities and threats, the O and the T, are external factors. So opportunities are positive external factors and threats are negative external factors. So those would be things like market dynamics, the market's doing well or crashing. That's an external factor. Political dynamics, external factors, right? So that's how we're thinking about breaking out strengths and weaknesses versus opportunities and threats. And I've done a million SWOTs, and I can tell you that even I sometimes get confused, and I'm like, is this Does this belong in this bucket or in this bucket? And it's okay to have some confusion. And sometimes you might come up with a piece of data or an informational piece, and it could belong in multiple buckets, and that's okay too. But really the main thing I want you to keep in mind is internal versus external. Now, the other thing I'll mention is that internal can also mean things like, let's see what we have here. I'm looking at my notes. Things that we control. So what do we have control over? That's also a good way for us to think about how we're differentiating between internal and external. External factors are factors that could be external specifically to the Council on Aging, but could be internal to the city of Easthampton. So for example, collaboration with another city department could be an external opportunity or a threat. The fact that we are, going into election season and we're going to have a lot of new city councilors and school committee members and a new mayor could be an external factor, even though it's within Easthampton. So again, there's not a lot to worry about in terms of, I don't need you all to be perfect in how you're assigning things. Just want to make sure that we understand the difference between internal and external. So I'm going to pause there because I just said a lot of words at everybody, and I want to see what questions are coming up for people at this point, if any. How are people feeling? Feeling okay? All right, I'm checking with my folks
I think the
online.
major factor to consider that you brought up was the internal versus the external. That's really good guidance.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. So here's another thing that I think will help us think about, again, how to start going into our group discussion. So I know it's a little hard to see on the screen, especially for folks in person. So I'm going to read this through, but these are some prompts and some questions that you can start thinking about when you go into your groups, which we're about to go into. Now, before I go into what's on the slide, I want to quickly kind of go over some logistics. So everyone should have a name tag who's in person. And on your name tag, hopefully it should have an S, a W, an O, a T, or a G. So you don't have to, care about it right now, but you all have a letter on your name tag, and that's going to correspond to the group that you're going to be in. What's going to happen is we're actually going to break you out. So we're not going to talk about all the things in our groups, except for maybe the general group. So there's a group for strengths, a group for weaknesses, a group for opportunities, a group for threats, and then G is general. So you, in the G group, you get to have you get to decide, it's kind of like, choose your own adventure book. You get to decide where you want to go with this. And for my folks online, you will also be considered a G group because it's a little bit trickier since you're all online, but you're all going to be in your own group and you're also going to be just discussing generally speaking. So keep that in mind as I talk through these prompts for how to start thinking about how you're going to discuss with each other. So for the strengths group, now anyone who's got an S on your name tag, listen up closely. Here's some questions you can think about asking yourselves when we break out. What are we proud of at our senior center right now? What do we do well? What are we already doing really, really good? What resources, people, partnerships, something else help us do well and succeed? Those are some questions, not all the questions, but some questions that can start you thinking. All right, weaknesses, my W folks. Where are we struggling? What complaints or concerns have we experienced or have we heard? What might be limiting our effectiveness or our growth? All right, opportunity folks. What trends or new ideas could be helpful for us in the future? Are there any untapped partnerships, funding sources, other resources that we haven't really explored yet? What do community members want that we could provide in the future? So my opportunities folks are kind of like the big thinkers. You're thinking about the possibilities in the future. All right, and then finally, my threats people, T folks. What external factors might harm us? I've already mentioned a couple that could be answered for this question. Are there any upcoming changes in funding, policies, demographics that would impact our senior center and our work in the future? Is there any competition? Are there any challenges? So again, these aren't the end-all be-all questions, but these are just designed to help you start thinking about how you might want to start discussing within your group. So again, I'll pause and ask what questions are coming up for folks, if anything, or are we feeling good? All right, no questions coming up online or in person? Perfect. So we are right on time. So let me see where we are now. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna now get into the fun part. So for all of you in person, we're gonna start moving around and we're gonna move to different spaces. For those of you in line, just hang tight. I'm gonna come to you after I get the in-person folks situated. So Cynthia, do you mind maybe speaking through where everyone will be?
Yeah. Okay. I've had a request that people not have to go all the way down to the basement, and it seems like nobody's using the room back here, so we can put the basement folks back there. So back there will be Tom Brown, Ginny Wall, Karen S. I don't want to say your name incorrectly. Zamowski.
Yes.
Oh, good. Linda Vogel, Ryan Griffin, and Lindsay Sekula. So you'll be back here. Weaknesses, you'll circle up in the back over there, hopefully not disrupting that person who's working back there. Kathy Carey, Marie, Gliffy, Roz, Connie when she gets here, and Mary Lou, you'll be there. And then up around here in the front, we're going to have Kathy, you don't have to move, Dawn, Katya, Carol, Lissa, and Sandy Eddy. And then the conference room 1, which is one room downstairs, that's Crystal, me, Patty, Diane, Sandy Reiser, and Joyce. And that's the threats group. Then the general group is right here in the middle of the room, and that's Pat, Ian, Louise, Aaron, Tom Garrick. And then we have, just so you know, online, who's online is board member Leslie Button, city councilor JP Kwasinski, and strategic planning team member Allegra Welly from CNA, and Connie. So Connie's online. Thank you for coming, Connie. So everybody has their assignments and you know where to go. And if you don't know where to go, just ask me or Tom. We have the sheets.
Don't move quite just yet. All right, one final thing I want to say is
You've got the only.
before we start the migration all over. So every group has, I believe, one board member in their group, and there's going to be someone who's taking notes. Is that
Oh,
the
yeah.
person or?
Yeah. You want me to tell? Okay. So IT director Karen set things up so that in conference room 1, the computer's on, and I will come down and make sure that we can take notes. And then the people who are up here are going to take notes with various laptops. And the point of taking the notes on the computer is that hopefully at the end of all this, if I show you where to put the notes live, we can actually look on the screen at what you all came up with. If that doesn't work, it's okay. People can read off their laptops, or I have a notepad if people need note paper. And the scribes, you all know who you are, and the reporters, you know who you are.
Question. How would the online participants want to participate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Within the smaller groups?
Yeah, so the question was, how will online folks participate? So we'll get to them once I get everyone in here and get moving around. But they're going to be in their own group, and they already know. I believe Leslie Button is the main person. So, okay, so everyone should have a spot to go to, and every group has a dedicated board member and note taker. We're going to take 45 minutes, so we will have a break at 12:45. So you're welcome to keep talking, or you come back in here. There's still some snacks and drinks and all that. I will go around to every group and let you know, and I'll be checking in with you. So if there's any questions along the way, don't hesitate. I do see one question in the room. Yes.
What's your entire time frame for this?
I'm sorry, could you?
What's your entire time frame for this?
So we're going to be ending at 1:30. So we'll have about a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back in and do the report out. All right, so for folks in the room, feel free to go to your assigned spots. Okay, it's just 1 p.m. We have 6 groups to report out, and each group is going to get no more than 5 minutes. So that gives us exactly a half hour left. So for my folks in person, if you could just keep the conversation start to die down a little bit. We're going to start with the online group, and let's see if I can figure this out, because I'm going to have Leslie go ahead and share out. And Leslie, I think you can unmute yourself and share, but if not, let me know.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Leslie.
Okay, great. I'm glad you're having us share out first. So, our group consisted of Allegra, Connie, Jim, and me. And let me review briefly what we identified as strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So among the strengths are socialization. The COA offers socialization. It offers community. It's a friendly atmosphere that's accessible. The staff are super helpful. It's great that leaders in the community are invited there to chat with constituents of the COA. The range of activities and participants participating in the activities is amazing. The COA helps and encourages people to combat isolation. They're great community partners that they've cultivated, music in the park, other social events, so there's all sorts of positive things happening there. I hope I haven't missed anything. So weaknesses, transportation is a real challenge. There's a tremendous need for transportation that the COI tries to fill as best as is possible, including partnering with PVTA in some instances, but it's sort of a never-ending well of demand. Some of the classes have limits, size limits, and it can be frustrating when people are turned away because of that, even if they've shown up on time, just because how it is. Conversely, one comment was some classes really need to be offered more frequently than they are because of what they offer. For example, Healthy Bones, Bounds classes, there's a real need for those. And, we can, really, when we were talking, it's like we want to enhance what's offered. Another weakness is the perceived lack of general awareness across the city that there even is a COA. One can see this when people walk into the building and try to buy stamps. It happens frequently. And the other weakness is the building itself. It's difficult for people with mobility issues to navigate. There's a lack of space inside. I know that sounds strange, but the space was configured for a post office, not a council on aging. There's a deficit of parking and more. Opportunities, I think one of the questions we had is, how does the COA reach out to people who are aging up? Letters, but would it be better to do phone calls or texts? We really think it would be advantageous to reach people who may not even be aware the COA exists. We're just not certain about that piece. And how do we compare with other cities and towns in Massachusetts or across the country? In terms of use of the facility, what's offered, things of that nature. The other opportunity is, could we link up with Lathrop or other assisted living facilities? For example, Lathrop is affiliated with 5 College Learning and Retirement. Could the COA partner with that group? And could the COA, for example, offer lecture series, sort of educational programs? And threats. So the building is a threat. For example, with a growing population of people 55 and older, it will be challenging to meet the future demand in the existing building, especially for those with mobility issues. And as the federal government reduces funds, there will be increased competition for monies to support the COA. So that's a threat. And speaking of federal funding, access to healthcare, Medicare, SNAP benefits, the loss of those services will impact services the COA offers. Will the COA be able to fill some of that void? Combined with that is the emotional toll that will take on staff who may not have solutions to help the people they serve. We felt this should be part of the Council on Aging Board's discussions to prepare the city, for what may lay ahead. So I think that's it in a nutshell.
That was perfect timing, Leslie. I was just about to jump in and tell you your 5 minutes was just about up. Thank you so much. That's a great overview to start us off with. So now what I'd like to do is I'm going to start with the strengths group. So whoever's reporting out from the strengths group, if you could come up here, if you're not already up here, and I'll give you my seat so that way people can see and hear you, and I'll have you report out for 5 minutes. One quick thing before I pass it over to the strengths folks is everything that the online group came up with. Thank you so much for a really good overview. One quick note I want to make is for the threat piece, the building would actually be considered a weakness, not a threat, because that's an internal factor, not an external factor. So just an example of how we're going to move some stuff around on the back end. But thank you so much, and over to strengths.
Okay, thank you, Felicia. I want to thank our group, Karen, Virginia, Linda, and Ryan, and especially Ryan for recording all of our notes. I did some things on paper so that I could memorialize them myself because I'll forget them before I get home. But under strengths, the first thing at the top of the list was staff. Their knowledge, their being open and welcoming, always accessible. One reference was they're a lifeline, going above and beyond, doing things that aren't always necessary in a job description, but looking to help someone out and ensuring people have a ride. Call if anything is needed. From time to time, a call is outbound calling, if you will. On communication, the feeling was that the newsletter is great, online and hard copies around the city. Release of the newsletter is done in a timely fashion so that signing up for events is perceived to be very fair. So newsletters not going out here early, a couple of days early here or there, and you call for an event or a class and it's filled up already. It's pretty much equally distributed at the same time. Allowing people to email their requests for programs, the signups, is a big positive change. Programs and activities. Everyone felt that the diversity of programs offered was great. Hikes. Who was that? Virginia, who likes to hike all the time. Or did she leave? Is she still here? You can't do enough hiking for Virginia, I'll tell you that right now. Hikes, outdoor, new venues, exercise, art classes, keeping prices affordable. In fact, everyone felt that what they do, when they do have to pay for something, is a very affordable and reasonable price. Van services, lunch, again, affordable prices. One question was about what would you fight to maintain, and an answer to that was maintain or even expand the gym classes that are free, and then vaccination clinics, blood pressure clinics, foot care, audio, even referrals. Someone mentioned in our group that a family member came in and the person said, "You need to see an audiologist." Was that a big help? Absolutely. They told them they need to see an audiologist. It was a good referral. Socialization is key. A place to interact and engage with others, and access to community resources. Socialization, socialization, socialization. Feeling of togetherness, like a big family. Very welcoming, friendly, feeling of home, inviting atmosphere. We just got into a little bit of what was referred to as sort of missed opportunities. I know.
Yeah, I'll actually, I'll have you put a pin in that, Tom, if you don't mind, because important, but let's keep it focused on the strengths just for now.
Okay.
And you have 30 seconds to wrap up.
Okay. So again, we can't focus enough on the communication, the diversity of programs, and the staff as being a great strength. That homey, friendly environment. One of the points was to keep that in a new center. And the best line I heard of the day was, "This is not your grandmother's senior center." You should put that over the door. Thank you.
That's great.
All right, thank you, Tom, and appreciate that. And yes, and for any group, if you wandered into other areas besides your focus, great. We'll capture all that information afterwards. But for the sake of keeping it tight right now, we'll keep it pretty focused. All right, so that was strengths. Let's go to weaknesses. Who is my weaknesses person? All right.
Where do you want me to go this way?
You can sit right here if you'd like.
Oh my goodness. All right.
Oh, if you sit right here, you'll get the mic here.
Okay. All right. The mic is right here. There's no conflict. All right. So we had a very well spoken group. Everyone that participated have something to say. Some of our things have already been mentioned, but transportation, of course, was one. The space was one. More staff was another. One thing that came up, which I thought was interesting, was the perception. You know, people say, well, I'm not old enough, I'm not this, I'm not that. So that was another area that I thought was interesting. I think the socialization and the ability to have food at the center was also mentioned. And those were some of the weaknesses. I'm trying to think. I don't have notes, so I'm just.
Marie's to your right, and she has some notes.
Great. Thanks,
So she-
Marie.
Yeah. she
Is
can
there anything
chime
I
in
missed?
too.
Do you want me to pick up on this? Yes, please.
Yeah, feel free to add in anything else.
Again, to reiterate what others have mentioned, and what Kathy said, the transportation and need for more, the kitchen, fitness and other types of classes, more activities, and all of this was tying into the connection with one another to detract from the isolation as much as possible, to inform people through public service announcements and broadcasting of more events. And we did touch on the newsletter and things like that, that there are a lot of positive changes that have happened in the past couple of years. But again, to combat the isolation, they really wanted more kitchen and community meals, more activities, and the transportation to get them there.
Okay, thank you so much. So that's great. We have a couple minutes back to ourselves, so we have a little bit more flexibility. So if I could get the opportunities group to come up next.
Thank you. I too would like to thank our committee with Dawn, Katya, Carol, Lisa, and Sandy for your input. We kept on going, I'll tell you. And again, some of this is some of our thoughts were based on a new building as an opportunity, even though I know that's an internal factor. But collaboration with new partners and expanding with current partners, expanding our opportunities like with the library or the schools or friends or neighbors and new businesses that move into Easthampton, and how can we potentially collaborate with them. And then it goes to new partnerships, expanding the lunch program in person or a meals program, having healthful snacks, maybe a cafe or vending opportunities. So someone who's already there for an activity does not have to go home to eat lunch and then come back for another activity. So maybe there'll be opportunities for different food sources and snacks. A water cooler so they could refill their water bottles if they're engaged in an activity, to have a water cooler there, not hurt the environment with plastic bottles and so forth. Spaces suited to activities, more services like the veteran services all in one place. Having the new building near other partners downtown, so access to many, many things. Having reciprocal agreements with other organizations. Again, increased programs and staffing. More technology integration. I know we do quite a bit with eMedia now and are providing computer services or classes for people, but there may be other technology integration to upgrade things at the center. Coordinate senior volunteers in the community. There may be opportunities to raise money for a particular group, or maybe have donations of shoes or clothing groups, and maybe a volunteer in the center could take on that task to be more community engaged. And then expand languages of outreach materials, maybe, eventually maybe you have to look at, producing a newsletter in a different language or providing something on Facebook or whatever in a different language. Increasing the amount of Easthampton folks. We know that the population is increasing. How do we reach out to these people? There's an opportunity to get more people engaged by reaching out in different manners. Hosting events for the whole community, maybe some intergenerational activities to bring more people and help socialization within the community. A more thriving Friends group that maybe is fundraising focus that can help out the center. Times for things may be changing in terms of where our funding comes from. With a new senior center, hopefully we'll increase our marketing so that, we can only market so much, and we would hate to have to turn away people who are already signing up for activities because we've done such a great job in marketing and we're already turning away people in some particular activities. Let's see. Policy on the state and local level to increase resources available for senior services in Easthampton. I know this can be a threat and depending on the political environment. Continued variety and wider programming with more staff, more space, new seniors, more participants. Increased marketing, always adapting for the changing population in Easthampton. Potentially somebody suggested maybe a birthday card for folks turning 55. I know we already send out a newsletter at that time when they turn 55, but what are other outreaches for opportunities? Booth maybe at the farmer's market, so people become more familiar with the center. Marketing materials, tabling a branded banner like when we were at Cultural Chaos, we didn't really have a banner there. And so people didn't really know where our booth are, and can we have something that's interactive so that the people can interact and we have an opportunity for more discussion rather than just sitting there. Community calendar that shows all activities so people know what is going on in a central place. And that might be a citywide thing. And then technology access computers, either in-house or in conjunction with another resource like the library. Lots of opportunity.
Yeah, I love this. And this is what I was saying to some of the groups as I was walking around. Like, this is our chance to really think big and vision. So I love the mix of big thinking and really specifics that you've identified. And I think it's a really good point. I'm just going to mention super quickly the point around the fact that our population of older folks is growing is a great example of both an opportunity, because it's good to know that there will be demand for a senior center in the future, as opposed to we could be sitting here and saying no one's going to need this in the future, but that's not the case. And it's also could be placed in a couple of the other different buckets too, right? So some of these points that we're all raising up may not fit neatly into just one of these factors. And so that's a really good example of that. But thank you, Abby. Okay, so next I'd like to invite up my threats group. And are you doing it, Cynthia?
No, Crystal's going to do it. And
Crystal's coming to the front of the room.
I also wanted to thank our group. They had wonderful feedback. We would not have come up with all of these possible threats without everybody's input. So I just wanted to thank everyone. So one of the primary threats that we identified were changes in government. The funding comes from the city, state, indirectly, federally. There's no state earmarks for anything that's going to be cut from the senior center, but we do receive a formula grant based on the census over 60, and we're worried about what cuts to that would affect the senior center as a direct threat. We also, the grant funding that is available through the Mass Councils on Aging comes from the state, and locally senior centers apply for that funding for programs and activities. So that's also a potential threat with changes in our government. We also have the threats of the people having increased economic hardships will receive less donations. Our Friends group is running out of money. The Helping Hands provide less to the organizations that they're able to help, including our Friends group. They're no longer providing assistance to our Friends group, which is a threat because our Friends group supports the senior center. When drivers for our transportation program, which all committees have agreed, we need increased transportation, but one of the biggest threats is when our current drivers retire and how difficult it is to replace the current drivers and all that they're doing and all the training that they have. Other threats that we have identified are obviously to cuts in Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, fuel assistance. One of the staff that has been spoken so highly of is Ashley, and her main responsibility as our outreach worker is to help bridge the gap to these services that are receiving cuts. Some other potential threats are the possibility of a new mayor or new members to city council that may not support the senior center, or if they do support the senior center, they may have more direct input on how the funding that we receive from donations is spent, as well as how the city will input on our director to how the department is run and what services are offered. For social patterns like lifestyle changes, we were talking about the threats with demographics, the number of seniors growing older, as well as our oldest seniors, increased clinical needs, and the need for more socialization and services. They gave the example of in Easthampton, our bingo group that we have has less participants based on the demographics of people moving into Easthampton. They're more interested in the social outings. So people who participate in the bingo group, would feel that this change in demographics could threaten activities that they enjoy. And then under weaknesses, we had just identified as a challenge and a threat is not all of our activities that we offer may provide food, but that when we do provide food, there are an increase in the population of people attending an activity, which then that additional cost, where's that money going to come from? So we want to be able, we just looked at it as a weakness because right now, we don't have food as a part of every activity, but we do recognize that when activities include food, there are more participants.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quickly. So is there anything else that's a threat specifically and not a weakness? Because I want to make sure that if there is any data that's related to the other factors, we want to have that. But just for the purpose so we don't get confused between the internal and the external stuff, threats should be very much external. So that's super valid what you just said, but it's more of an internal weakness. Any other external threats to share out? Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That was very comprehensive. And what I'll just say too is as I was walking around, and most groups, we came up with other points too, right? Because it's hard to just say super focused on one topic only. So other threats would be, so just to build on what folks have said, like transportation reliability. So that could be unrelated to drivers retiring, but infrastructure of roads. Are we going to have increased cost of vans, things like that, the tariffs, competition between other senior centers? Do they have better services and more friendly people? Those are kinds of other external threats in addition to what we've heard around things like the cuts to funding and the sort of uncertainty that we're experiencing both at local and federal levels. All right, so last but not least, we have our last general group, which I think Pat is our person sharing out. So
Yeah.
Pat, take us home with what your group came up with.
So I'm going to save everyone a few more minutes because I think, fortunately, well, first I'll thank Ian, Tom, and Aaron and Louise for our lively discussion that we had. We actually covered, as you know, everyone's going through it and mentioning things. I'm like, oh, well, I was going to talk about that. Well, we talked about that, but I'll try and kind of wrap up a couple of things. We had a great discussion about a little bit of everything. We really hit on all of the topics, I think. Some of the things, you know, the handful of things that I'll mention were, you know, we don't think one of the strengths is some of the outreach folks that you have, or that's a strength and a weakness, because we don't think that there's enough of those good outreach folks. And so as the population is going to age, as we've all kind of said, if they have one person, that's great. When they really need 4, that's something that we're going to have to worry about as we go into the future. One of the things we talked about as far as maybe a weakness and or a threat is not enough money in the budget. I think it's a great idea. Now is like the perfect time for everyone to talk to anyone who's running for office for our city, because these are the folks that are going to control how much money is allocated to the Council on Aging. So that weakness is right now that there may not be enough money in the budget for certain programming and services that are being provided right now. We talked a little bit about the ability to get the word out. This was discussed with several folks about how we're doing it now, but is it enough? I think there are still a lot of people who have no idea what services can be provided to them. They don't know how to reach out to somebody. And so that is definitely something that needs to be worked on. We talked about maybe there's some opportunities to maybe partner with other organizations. We talked about Lathrop, or somebody else talked about Lathrop and some of the other folks. There was some great discussion about the programming and how the Northampton Senior Center operates, and some of the programs and trips and things that they do, that maybe there's an opportunity to partner with other Council on Aging groups in the area to expand on what we can provide for the folks that we have here in town. Everything else is really hit on pretty much. Getting the word out, I think, is an important thing. That's, you know, I've lived here 27 years, and I've heard that a lot about a lot of different organizations, not just Council on Aging, but the city council or the mayor's office or whatever it may be. The DPW, people don't know that they're working on X, Y, or Z, but I don't think any of us know what the answer is. I mean, you know, I can tell you that we could do a mailer to, you know, 16,000 residents that's going to say tomorrow's free hot dog or free ice cream day, and 8,000 people won't show up because they didn't get the mail or they didn't read it. So there's got to be some way we can help continue to get the word out for people about what is happening at the senior center. That's, again, a lot of things that were already touched on. I just don't want to rehash them again.
Thank you, Pat. That was perfect. You are right on time. So we have literally 2 minutes left. I don't know if anyone else is in this space afterwards. I don't think so. So we have some flexibility, but we're going to start wrapping up. So obviously there was probably a lot more that we didn't get to, and I know some groups do have other things too. So I believe everyone who took notes knows how to get those to Cynthia and the rest of the staff, but if not, come up here at the end and talk to us if you have additional notes or data that you would like to share out with us. I will say that my understanding is that it's now over to the board. So board members, you know who you are. This is all in your hands now, and so there'll be more follow-up afterwards. So don't worry, this is not the end-all be all of our conversation. This is just a starting point. And I'd like to personally say just thank you, because this stuff is how we come up with what we want out of the future. And I was able to go around and circulate to every group, and I heard a lot of really good information that was coming up, both with hopes and dreams and wishes, and also what's currently happening and what are the challenges or the pain points or the issues that we experience. So thank you to everyone who's been here. Thanks to the staff who's put a ton of work into putting this together. And Cynthia, over to you for any final words or wrap up.
Okay. So our board chair, Kathy Schweitzer, she's going to adjourn the meeting in just a moment, but a personal thank you to all of you city staff, officials, participants and volunteers of the senior center and the board, thank you.
Cindy, if I could jump in with just one quick question, that came up in our group that I could not answer is, would our final strategic plan document be a public document that especially folks in this group that attended today could see?
Yes, and it will be a public document. So the process is that there's a strategic planning team of board members, staff, and participants of the senior center. And they are going to take all of this information and chew on it and bring a report back to the board. There's many other pieces that go into the strategic plan. It will all be submitted to the Massachusetts Councils on Aging in its final form after the board approves it in September, a year from this September. And so at that point, after we get some feedback, it's sometime that fall, it will be a public document in 2026.
Alicia, on behalf of the board, thank you, and everyone here, thank you for your expertise and your professionalism in conducting today's sessions. It was wonderful, outstanding. And then our next meeting is September 17th, and I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All right, I'd like to make the motion. Sorry. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Tom seconds. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all for attending.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.